Today, we're going to dive deep into the architecture of your mind. We're going to explore this really fascinating framework that connects the logical, everyday world of your waking thoughts with the wild, bizarre landscape of your dreams. So here's the big question that sits at the heart of all this. Are these two states of consciousness, are they fundamentally different things? Or are they just different arrangements of the exact same mental ingredients? The answer might just change how you think about, well, thinking itself. Okay, so to get to the bottom of this mystery, we first have to understand the basic building blocks of any mental experience. The whole idea here is that there are 5 core ingredients, or process streams, that your mind uses to construct every single moment you're aware of. All right, so here they are. First, you've got scene sequence, which is basically your mind's ability to build a story or an image. Then there's perception trails. That's how you track all the sensory details around you. Feeling gradients, well, those are the emotional currents guiding you. Intuition connections are those super fast associative leaps your brain makes. And finally, there's cognitive serial reasoning. That's your structured step-by-step logic. A really easy way to think about it is like this. These 5 streams are kind of like your fundamental Lego bricks. Every thought, every feeling, every crazy dream you have is built from some combination of these same 5 pieces. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your mind isn't just a simple calculator adding things up. No way. It mixes these ingredients together in a way that's, well, it's nonlinear. And what that means is that a tiny, tiny input from one stream can trigger a massive, totally disproportionate output in another. Small causes can have huge effects. Take this real-world example from a snippet of a dream. It just perfectly illustrates this whole nonlinearity thing. You've got this tiny perception, a small insect bite, which then triggers a huge visual distortion and this amplified emotional response of fear. See, the input and the output are completely out of whack. So if both our dreams and our waking thoughts are using the exact same 5 ingredients, what is the secret recipe? What makes them feel so profoundly different? This, right here, is the core revelation of this whole framework. It all comes down to this one idea called the interpretation ratio, or IR for short. It's basically a measure of how much of your experience is being generated from the inside, from your memories, emotions, and predictions, versus how much is being locked down by hard data from the real world. And really, it's pretty simple when you break it down. A high IR means your mind is mostly running on its own internal script, with very little input from reality. A low IR means your thoughts are being tightly constrained by what's happening in the outside world. And this is the big aha moment. The difference between all these mind states, it isn't the ingredients themselves, it's the ratio of interpretation to external constraint. It's not what you're thinking with, it's how you're mixing it. So let's put this idea to the test. Let's see how this framework actually applies in the real world. Because what's so powerful about it is that it helps us understand wildly different parts of human thought, from the most personal stuff to the most public. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out perfectly. You can see that dreams operate with a really, really high interpretation ratio, right? They're almost completely generated from inside your head. Science, on the other hand, is always trying for the lowest IR possible, constantly checking itself against external data. And politics? Well, look at that. It sits right in that high interpretation zone, driven heavily by internal stories and emotional frames. Let's zoom in on that a bit. When we're awake, the dials for our perception, our logic, and our reality checking are turned way up. But in a dream, those get turned way down, while the dials for feeling and for scene creation get cranked all the way up. It's the same processes, just a completely different mix. Now, let's get to the most provocative comparison here. Structurally, the source material argues that political reasoning often looks a lot like dream cognition. Think about it. Both are characterized by these high emotional loads. In our dreams, this creates symbolic, almost mythic scenes. In politics, it creates these powerful narrative frames that completely shape how we interpret events. And this quote from the source material really just hits the nail on the head here. It's not saying politics is a dream, of course, but it's saying that the cognitive structure, the way meaning is built with high emotion and strong narratives and less external constraint, is surprisingly similar. So what are the big takeaways from all this? I mean, what does it all mean? Well, understanding our mind as a system of ratios instead of separate little boxes has some pretty profound implications. First off, consciousness isn't just one thing. It's this whole space of different ratios. Second, dreams and waking thoughts are actually on a continuum. They're separated by how much reality checking is going on, not by their fundamental nature. Third, that whole nonlinear mixing thing, that's what allows for creativity and insight, but it also explains distortion. And finally, and maybe most shockingly, many of our big social systems like politics and economics are actually functioning in these high interpretation zones. So you can forget about thinking of your mind as just an on-off switch for dreaming versus waking. A much, much better way to picture it is like a dynamic mixing board, where the sliders for perception, emotion, logic, and scene creation are constantly being adjusted to create whatever state of consciousness you're in right now. And that leaves us with one last, kind of mind-bending thought. If the only thing separating your most logical, rational argument from a completely bizarre dream is just the ratio of a few mental ingredients, how tightly anchored to reality are you right at this very moment? Something to think about.